Hey Bookends! Welcome to a 10-minute book review. I'm 10. Today's book review is going to be on Rebel Sisters. Focus. No? Okay. By Tochi Onyebuchi. We like to start off every book review with a star point, as in how many stars out of 10 did this particular book garner, and also with the rating, as in if this was a movie, what would this book, what would it be rated? And I say we because even though you see me, 10, up front, 2 is in the back doing other things, and she does other things with the channel along with reading. She's just camera shy right now. But jumping right on in, this book got out of 10 stars, it garnered 3. It was interesting. As a rating, this would probably be somewhere between a PG and an R, not because of the actual situations that take place, but because of the ramifications of the situations that take place, if that makes sense. So a bad thing can happen, but there are some ramifications from the bad thing that happens that would bring it into the R realm, not the actual thing that happened itself. Yes. So, starting off, this book centers on Iffy, Afome. I believe her real name is Afome, but she's called Iffy for short. If you recall, in the last book, Onye was the main protagonist. In this one, it's Iffy. So she's on the space station, which Onye made sure that she was able to get on, because I don't think it's any spoiler to say now how Onye saved her life. When she was supposed to die, she basically saved her life. If you want to see how that happened, that would be at the end of the first book. And also at the end of the first book, it leaves you with Onye dying. So Iffy, who wanted to be a pilot just like Onye, is a doctor. And essentially this book is, there's something, an illness that's going around, and she's doing her best to help with it. There are a litany of characters that I don't really find that engaging. I did kind of like Grace. For some reason I thought that there was going to be some sort of relationship, but that wasn't it. So I was a little confused as to what Grace's actual purpose in the book was, aside from being Iffy's assistant. She's not really like a nurse, she's more like Iffy's assistant. And I find it interesting that Iffy is so young, and yet she's a doctor. But I guess I shouldn't be so interested. I guess it shouldn't be so odd that Iffy is young and a doctor, because Onye was incredibly young and a soldier. Not just a soldier, but a pilot, a mech driver. Yeah, this is all before the age of 30. She didn't even reach 30 because she was just so young doing all this stuff. Let's talk about the good. If you are into feminism, if you are into just strong female protagonists, strong-willed women that don't need, I'm not trying to sound mean or funny or whatever, but they don't need a man to get them from A to B. Like, they're like, bruh, you can drive me if you like to, but I got the keys to my own car, so I don't really need you, kind of a situation. Then this is a good book for you. Most of the characters are female. Even in the other book in the series, it was also a female-led book, which is very interesting for a male author to write such female-led books. He writes his other book, I forget the name of it just because I'm talking about it, but we did a review on it and I'll try to link it. But Tochi Onyebuchi did another book where the lead was a female. It was 2 different points of view, but the 2 different points of view, one was mostly female and the other one, well, was female completely, and the other one was a male, but the female's voice was louder than the male's in a way. So yes, if you're looking for female protagonists that are not taking life laying down, that are affected by the matriarchy but are not being held down by it, this book is for you. These are strong women. Also, if you're looking for strong black protagonists, well, when I say black, let me change that. Strong African protagonists. I want to make that distinction because you may recall when I started reading this book a few months ago, I had to stop to finish, but I had to stop because it started making me feel othered, the strong othering feeling, where it's like, why are these people so much like me and yet not me, kind of a thing. So I'm black, I'm African American, mixed with quite a few other things, Native, mostly if you're just gonna cut me in half, African American and Native. The battery died, so we're just gonna go with it. But yes, that's why I had to stop reading it originally, because I felt so different. It kind of highlighted the demarcation between what it would be like to know one's culture fully and what it is to only have passing wispy, I should say, not whimsical, but wispy glimpses of one's past and one's culture. So how I was able to get back into this book was just to kind of look at it as totally different and not try to see myself in it, even though I really wanted to see it. It's weird. Being African American is such an odd space to exist in, because you don't really fit in anywhere aside from with other African Americans, if that makes any sense, even though genetically speaking we're a mixing, like a boiling pot of cultures. But it's yeah, even with other natives it's not the easiest to fit in. So yay, 3 cheers for colonialism and slavery, I guess. Anyway, back to the actual book. Yes. So this book is really good if you're into feminism, or just into strong female leads who don't need anything from anyone aside from themselves. Not in a bad way. Of course, teamwork is encouraged, but they're not in need of a man to find the answers to their problems. They're perfectly capable of finding them on their own. Also, pardon me, if you're into STEM, then this is also a very good book. I would not recommend this to young children, to introduce them to STEM. If you want to do that, you should probably stick with the Zuri books from Marvel. Like, don't use this. Don't use this book, because there are too many. It's about war, essentially, so there's too many mature themes in it. And when I say mature, I don't mean sex. I do mean violence and the consequences that come after violence. There's not a lot of war in this book, because essentially the war is over. There is some violence, but there are a lot of consequences that come after war in this book, and the author doesn't shy away from them. So this wouldn't be, it is a good book for STEM, like if you're into STEM, into the sciences and things of that nature. It is not a good book for children if they're into STEM. Like, this would be like for someone who's 16 and up. 15, 16 and up. I wouldn't even go for 14. 15, 16 and up. Last good thing, it is immersive. If you allow yourself to be immersed in it, if you allow yourself to go on the ride with the characters, then you do find yourself doing just that, going on a ride where you feel like you're right next to them while everything is happening. So yep, those are the 3 great things about it, or good things about it. What's not so great is that once again it goes back into that present tense talk, except not only is it in present tense in some parts, it's also in first person present tense. Like, I'm looking at this, I am doing that, I am touching, and it becomes a bit repetitive. And the present tense, okay, so this book is told with 2 different voices. One, we would have to assume, or at least it appears to be 2 different voices. One, we would assume to be a narrator narrating what's happening with Iffy. So not someone who's actually in the book, but just a narrator, just how a normal book would be, just a narrator. And they are narrating what's happening with Iffy. The other portion of the book, and it moves, I don't want to say chapter after chapter after chapter, they're mixed in. But the other voice in the book is a nameless person who you find out later is Onye. That's not a spoiler in my personal opinion, because she didn't exactly die in the last book. She was left off dying, and let's be honest, this series really isn't much without Onye, because Onye was War Girls. So when the narrator is talking about Iffy, that present tense is kind of anxiety inducing, because the way it's worded, you're always in step with the character. You're never either behind or in front of the character. You're always in step with, like, the character. You're lockstep with the character. You're like, you're two soldiers walking down together. So your fate is entwined with this person. So I guess for some people that's okay. For me, I found it to be a bit annoying. And at times nerve-wracking. But I guess it also means that the book was immersive. When it came to the first person writing, I found that to be highly annoying, because it got repetitive with the eyes. And I felt as though Onye was horribly reduced in this book. It kind of like if you took like a whole jug of pineapple juice, right? You have this jug of pineapple juice. And it's like, this is like the best pineapple juice ever. And you put it on the stove. You pour the pineapple juice into a pot, turn the fire up, and you turn it, you're cooking this pineapple juice for one reason or another. And instead of it being what it was, this thing that could fill up this entire jug, once you're done with it on the fire, it's been reduced to a stickiness. And once you've left it on for too long, a very small stickiness that looks nothing like itself. Iffy was a whole person in the other, not Iffy, I'm sorry, Onye was a whole person in the other book. She was dynamic. She experienced PTSD. She was a fighter. She was a lover. She cared. She was an entire person in the other book. In this book, she seems to be reduced to fragments of a person, and I don't think that was done on purpose. I don't think the fragmentation of this character was done as a conscientious thought to give some sort of a message on war and what happens. I think she became fragmented because Iffy is now the main protagonist of the story. She is the main thing that he wanted people to care about, the main character that he wanted people to care about. So I believe because of that, Onye's character suffered. Now, if anyone has spoken to Tochi Onyebuchi, or if anyone has any links, any interviews that he's done on Rebel Sisters where he addresses this, the fragmentation or the reducing of Onye's character, I'd love to hear it if you can link it or leave a note in the comments. And when I say reduction in character, I don't mean that she has a smaller part in the book, because she does have a large enough part in the book. It's just who she is. It feels like I don't even say a different person. I just feel like she's a shade. I don't know if you've ever heard of shades of people. I know my grandmother used to say something like this when I was little. Even though I personally don't believe in this, it kind of mirrors this. There's the person, then there's the soul, like there's the body, the soul, and the shade. And this is the body, which you're in. And the belief is that the soul is inside the body. And then the shade is what gives shape to the soul, if that makes any sense. Like, that's where the base for the soul is. The base for the soul is the shade. And there was like an old native's tale about how the shadow first came to be. Basically, the shadow was someone's shade. It's what gave birth to the actual spirit inside the actual soul or spirit inside of the body. It's a lot. It's a lot. I don't believe in all that for the most part, but I say that to say that Onye feels like a shade. It doesn't feel like the soul of Onye. It doesn't feel like the soul, the spirit, the body of Onye. It doesn't feel like Onye. It feels like a shade of Onye. It feels like this is the complete base of what made her up as a person, but there is no personality or flavor behind it. I may not be explaining this in the best way, but basically, Onye is not Onye. There are things about her that will remind you of the girl who was a soldier, but it just doesn't feel... She feels so peripheral. It feels like it feels like instead of looking directly at Onye, we're always seeing her through our side vision. Even though we're trying to look directly at her, it feels like the character stays in our peripheral, and it's very annoying. Because if you're looking directly at something, it shouldn't feel like it's in your peripheral. It should feel like you're looking directly at it. So I was very upset about that, because Onye was rebel. I mean, she was War Girls. And I feel like that just disrespected her character. Also, I don't want to give away the ending of the book. I will say that the ending isn't anything spectacular. I will also say that there is no such thing as a happy ending in the world of Tochi Onyebuchi. There are... Strings are tied up. Strings are tied up. So there are no loose strings. I will say that even though his books are mostly fantasy and science fiction based, so of course not real world based, the endings are very realistic in that there are no happy endings. Sometimes the endings are just enough. Like the happiness to the ending isn't that there's actual happy ending, but it's just that it's over. That's the only thing. That the pain or whatever the person is going through is over. Not that they're dead or anything like that, but just that it's over. And sometimes that's just where the happiness in life comes from. Not that you're actually having a happy ending, but that the worst part is done. And everything is just downhill and easier from this part. So yeah, I'm not going to give away the ending, but I will say that the ending isn't spectacular. It's not like with War Girls, how there was this spectacular burst of energy at the end. There is no spectacular burst of energy at the end. I actually am very confused by this book, because the ending of it would denote that the whole thing is Onye reminiscing to someone, whether it be in written form or verbally, about her and Iffy's adventures in life. I'll say her and Iffy's lives, but because they live their lives separately, of course. But here's where the problem comes in. Iffy's part of the book, the narration that takes place for Iffy's part of it, it's written in a way that is grammatically sound, grammatically correct. I don't like that it's present tense, but I also can say that the writing is sound. When it comes to Onye's portion of it, if I said Onye before, I meant Iffy's part. Now, when it comes to Onye's portion of it, hers starts to degrade after a while. The very end of it sounds like either the editor didn't get a chance to do that chapter, or that Onye's mental capacity has degraded to the point where she's not able to handle a conversation in a way that would make her seem as though she's a fully functioning adult. I do not know, but I know that these two are clearly, the writing styles are two clearly different writing styles, because it's supposed to be. It's two different forms of narration. But to say that Onye is responsible for both would make no sense. It would be like me talking to you like this right now, and a few sentences from now saying, "Owie, my boo-boo hurts." It wouldn't make sense. So, I'm not 100% sure what that ending is supposed to mean. If you have the book, or if you decide to read the book, I guess you can let me know what you think as well. But that, I don't want to say the ending is ambiguous. It's not ambiguous. I just don't know what it is supposed to mean. It's supposed to mean that only the parts that are Onye's were being narrated by Onye, and that she's saying, "This is my story and I hope that you enjoy it." Or is she saying, "I've told everything from Iffy to me, and this is who I am now, and I hope you enjoy it"? I don't know. I will say that Onye just never gets a fair shake. She was born not getting a fair shake. She did not get a fair shake in the last book. She's not going to get a fair shake in this one. So if you're looking for any happy endings or anything like that for Onye, you're not going to find them. You will find closure, because from the way that the book is written, the last chapter shows definite finality. So I don't believe that there's going to be another book in this series unless it takes on a new generation, which is entirely possible, but it does not feel that way from the way the book is written. So, whew, yes, that is the long-awaited review on Rebel Sisters. And I say long-awaited not because you guys are waiting for it, but just because it took me so long to finish it, because I just had to get back in the mind space to be able to finish this. Yeah. But thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.